Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining this discussion this afternoon amidst many difficulties with power in Sri Lanka. So today, before we go to the topic of corruption that we are to discuss, I like to read this statement that was issued by the UK government for visitors to Sri Lanka. The economic situation is deteriorating in Sri Lanka with shortages of basic necessities, including medicines, fuel, and food, because of a shortage of hard currency to pay for imports. There may be long queues at grocery stores, gas stations, and pharmacies. Local authorities may impose the rationing of electricity, resulting in power outages. There have been a number of recent protests. One in Colombo on 31st of March resulted in a curfew being temporarily imposed. There are reports that there will be further protests across the island in the next few days. On 1st April 2022, the government of Sri Lanka declared a public emergency, and an island-wide curfew is now in place from 6 p.m. on 2nd April 2022 until 6 a.m. on 4th April 2022. Local restrictions, including further curfews, could be imposed at short notice. You should be vigilant, avoid any demonstrations or large gatherings, and follow the advice of the local authorities. Sadly, that's the situation where we are in at the moment in Sri Lanka. This has resulted from an incident this Thursday at Mirihana, where there was violence and setting up a bus on fire. Since this morning, the Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, etc. are blocked in Sri Lanka. So all this came to this situation after an economic crisis that has become worse over the last 2-3 years. And that resulted in an energy crisis where you couldn't import the energy and left a lot of other shortages. Here is one example where there were endless queues and also shortage of medicines, hits hospitals, scheduled surgeries at Peradeniya Hospital suspended. So it's a really difficult situation for Sri Lankan families. Let's go back 50 years. This is a picture of N.M. Pereira, the Minister of Finance, who was there from 1970 to 1975. When he took over office, the budget deficit was $195 million US. I was at that time an advanced level student, and I entered university in 1975. So because of this budget deficit, he imposed various restrictions. You could not take more than 2 kilograms of rice in a transport from one place to the other. And there were roadblocks to prevent this, and it was a criminal offense to take any more than 2 kilograms. The rupees 150 notes were made invalid overnight, and people had to queue to get their invalidated notes in exchange for new ones in the bank. I remember in Galle, the queue was like 2 miles long. And I remember the JVP riots in 1971. Amidst the restrictions, there was no sugar at all. Clothes were in different 2 or 3 colors, and printed, very poor quality. They were imported clothes by one industry called Dasa Industries. And they were synthetic clothes. Again, very low quality, but it was another option for people who can buy. And the imported foods were restricted. Even dal was not there. Salmon tins that people commonly used was not there, and it was seen again only in 1978. So for me, my life was like this as an advanced level student. I had tapped 3 coconut trees to make jaggery. So I will put the toddy into heat in the morning before I go to school. And by the time when I come back in the evening, it's usually done. Then after that, after school, I had to join the bread queue every day to get our ration of bread. And I have personally witnessed and remember 1971 riots. So basically, over the years, since 1971, we have resorted to violence as a resolution to our problems. Sadly, we, the working class, paid dearly for all this property and human life damage and the forces. Today, we are no longer the pearl in the India's ocean. So who am I? My name is Gunasekara, Chula Gunasekara, graduated from University of Peradeniya in Sri Lanka, 1980. And I now have 42 years of experience in medicine and higher education. I've done my bit and tried to make Sri Lanka go forward. So in 2002, I was the founder member Society of Critical Care and Emergency Medicine. As a professor of anesthesiology appointed the same year, I've introduced curricula in emergency medicine and anesthesia to the undergraduate curriculum of the medical students' education. I was a founder member of the National Renal Transplant Program in adults in Kandy, in collaboration with surgeons in Royal Free Hospital and Great Ormond Street Hospital in London. I was also founder member of the National Renal Transplant Program for children at Peradeniya. I was a founder dean of the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences for the first of its like, established at University of Peradeniya, and offered BSc degrees for nurses and allied health, other professions like pharmacy and medical robotic science under huge protests from the GMI. Then became the founder chairman of the Board of Study, Critical Care and Emergency Medicine, and established both as specialties. Emergency medicine is already a full specialty and critical care is halfway there. And now I'm trying to be a founder member of the LEADS and trying to help Sri Lanka decide better through education. Look at this graph. You can see rupees in the y-axis and the years in x-axis and how many rupees you got for a US dollar. And 1975, just before that, we could get about 7 rupees for $1. Now, $1 costs 275 rupees. You can see our depreciation as a country and also the value of our currency. That's the end result, because ultimately, with this end result, it's our responsibility. We have to pay. The working class has to pay for all these. Here is a picture I extracted recently, very summarizing picture from a document. And differences, this document shows, for minimum cost of living. So these are the essential food items and what we need to live. In 2016 and 2022, the cost then in 2016 was 4,177 rupees, and 2022 it's 11,048 rupees. And tourist arrivals had dropped markedly, and you know the reason? Reason is why. Because the tourists would like stability, safety, peace, transport, food, medical help, and enjoyment if they go on a holiday somewhere. But unfortunately, none of these will be available with the curfews, the riots, with no power, no food, and no safety. So we cannot expect that tourism income is going to go up in the country in the near future. So let's look at this bucket as our economy. It's got holes over time, and those holes are because of corruption, mainly because of corruption. And then there are local oligarchs who are corrupt. Local oligarchs, I mentioned this name because oligarchs refer to stinking rich people in the Russia who has exploited various contracts, etc., in association with the political power to get themselves rich in the process. And they own many, yachts, etc., and rich all around the world and so on. So we have similar people locally as well. Unfortunately, our productivity has more or less remained the same. Education and energy, and we are not doing anything like that. So, for example, in our university admissions, only 10% of the advanced level student got any place in Sri Lankan universities. The others have to find their own ways. And this has been there the same for so many years. So instead of investing on productivity, our governments went for loans and loans and loans. And the government debt today in 2022 is 119% of our GDP. It has exceeded total productivity of us over the year. So sadly, this is a very difficult situation for us to cope with. Who pays for it? The working class. The working class will have to pay for all these difficulties. So our recovery need kind of a three-pronged mission. Reduce wastage and specifically corruption. And that's what we are going to discuss today. In addition to that, we need to invest on research and innovation, which should be obstacle-free, so people are free to think and innovate. And we need to increase productivity by promoting education and also energy availability. So, although we think it's time to get free of corruption, it's not going to be easy because it's embedded in the system. Corruption is our Sri Lanka's killer. And I'm going to produce today or talk to you a layman's view using my lifetime experience, but you all are welcome to contribute to this because you may know other aspects of this. So today should be likely to be like a seminar. So I am only going to make an outline as a layman so that it will allow at the end for you to share your ideas as well. Why should we talk about this? Corruption is a serious crime that undermines social and economic development and weakens the fabric of modern day society. What is corruption? The Transparency International definition is the misuse of public power for private benefits. So it is dishonest or fraudulent behavior by those in positions of power for personal benefit. Now, this could include politicians, managers, government officials, and so on. So here we are in Sri Lanka. We have a government, and people come and go. Just to use fake names, it could be President of the Sun come here, Foreign Minister of the Moon come and go, an envoy from Uranus will come and go, and Prime Minister from Neptune may come and go. But we don't hear anything more other than we are being like a bait. They do deals to help us. That's what we hear. We don't know whom to be helped. No details. Public will eventually pay for whatever the deals that's been done. So the corruption can include giving or accepting bribes or inappropriate grifts. Double dealing, something that I will discuss later on. Under the table transactions. Manipulating elections. I mean, this was rampant many years ago in Sri Lanka, where even elected ministers publicly acknowledge that they've stuffed the ballot boxes. Diverting funds, laundering money, and even now there are judicial cases against some ministers for laundering money. Defrauding investors. So here is a cartoon that I extracted from last week. It's in Sinhalese, but I converted into English. Here is a politician here, and here is a normal public person. So if to be handed over, now this is a public person says, if to be handed over, the train service should be given to a Japanese company. They will do an excellent job. Then the politician says, do not even mention It's a really bad country. You say, why is it so? He'll say, oh, if they catch me giving even a 5 cents commission, I will be sent straight to the jail. Now, corruption is dynamic and evolving. And here are some other examples of use of public position for private gain, which is also corruption. Say lobbying. Say our politicized professionals do that. Even if they know what is said is wrong, they will come out and say, yes, yes, yes. Then there's extortion. This includes threats of violence. And I have experienced this myself, where people might issue threats of violence for you to stop doing something. Cronyism is favoritisms to friends and associates. This is a very common thing in Sri Lanka. Then nepotism, those in power favoring friends and give jobs, etc., bypassing the qualified. So you take a letter from your minister and go and get your job. Parochialism, where limitation of views or interests, that is suppression of other parties and expression of views. Then patronage, unfair support. Then the influence you have is influence peddling. What do you mean by your influence can be sold to various people as well in return for money. Then embezzlement, there's fraudulent appropriation of funds or property entrusted in your care. Here is one example of this. This is a paper article, very recent one. Court holds cabinet decision on Sirisena's residence. It says the Supreme Court issued an interim order suspending the decision taken by the cabinet of ministers, allowing former President Maithripala Sirisena to continue using the residence located down to him, even after retiring from the presidency. Now here, a group of politicians, that's the cabinet, favors another politician. So use of public position is for personal gain. That's what's happening, and that's the corruption. There is also, at the other hand, have supply versus demand corruption, grand versus petty corruption, conventional versus unconventional corruption, public versus private corruption. Our interest is mostly on public corruption. Take this example. This is rice, our staple food, and we have experienced what happens to its price. It sometimes goes down, sometimes goes up, but we don't exactly know how this is happening. Now, we describe about local oligarchs or middlemen who have some degree of import control and importing tax control because of their links with the politicians. Here is what happens. So you have 2 harvesting seasons in Sri Lanka. So the rice prices tends to go up when it closes after the harvesting season. That's natural because the supply is less and the demand is the same. So when the rice prices go up, the farmers expect that they might be able to get some income and then at harvesting and then pay their debt and etc. and get ready for the next crop. However, the rice import may take place, which is cheap rice, with a statement saying, oh, we need to protect the consumer from expensive rice. So what happens is that this cheap imported rice will bring down the rice in the market. But because of that, what happens is the paddy that is harvested immediately after will be sold at a rock bottom price, sometimes at a loss for the farmer. And when it is at the rock bottom price, it's bought by these middlemen and they store it and then release it later in a controlled fashion to maintain higher prices and claim a profit. And these local oligarchs, middlemen, have political links for both areas, and they benefit from that as well. So that's supply and demand corruption. And sadly, it's the farmer who will remain poor forever because of this corruption. Corruption can come in multiple formats and formation, often covert and international. Public money corruptions can be government loans, projects, investments that lack transparency. There could be white elephant mega projects around the country that has no public benefit or profit. Insurance deals that fix fuel import prices above the world market has been corrupt. I'll show an example shortly. And soft loans of high interest with no definite project purpose, and hidden deals on public assets with foreign countries and more. So all that can be corrupt and cost the taxpayer. Here is one example. If you're doing a public project, a major project, for example, you have a project proposal, which is a public contract. There's an estimated budget. If there's any commissions required, that will be included in this budget and transparent. Then this project proposal will be quality assured and consider that it's value for money. Then you will have a correct contractors to complete the project on an open, competitive, independent selection. So the project gets complete and it's quality assured again. And then within the budget, hopefully, and then the public costs is paid by the taxpayer, but the outcome of the project benefits the public. But look at this scenario here. Public contract, yes. But there is a commission and it's not transparent. This is something that seems to be happening. We don't know how much even. Quality assurance for value for money, no such a thing. Feasibility studies are very poorly described. Then contractors, is it open competitive? Probably not. And the selection depends on favorations. Project is completed, but there's no quality assurance to it. And within the budget or something could be not much public benefit. And this is a white elephant where the public will have to pay for its maintenance. So installation of such mega public projects without transparent feasibility studies is also a form of corruption, as public money is utilized without clear projection of public benefit. Under these circumstances, there has to be some other person or persons covertly benefiting from such projects. This too falls within the definition of corruption. Take another aspect, medical corruption. Bribes and kickbacks for procuring contracts for construction of healthcare facilities and purchase and supply of medicine. Then theft of drugs. Then bribes for approval of registration and quality of drugs are some examples that can happen. I remember at tsunami time, the Chancellor Kohl, who was the Chancellor of Germany, was in Gaul. And at the end of tsunami, he decided to help Gaul area for a new hospital. And he offered a new hospital. And that's how the Karapiti hospital was built. So I remember an incident where when he offered the hospital, the minister at the time told that they will develop the hospital if you give us the money. Then the Chancellor Kohl told him that, no, we will develop the hospital and I'll give you the keys. So you can see the difference, and they already know what difference it is. That's to avoid corruption. Here is another example, which is quite sad. Government medical laboratory technologists won't probe on false positive PCR reports. What happened was some private hospitals tricked people giving false positive PCR tests for COVID. So they had to undergo quarantine in the hospital itself, say creating another income source for the culprits. It's very sad, but it has happened. Other forms of corruption. Then there's sextortion. A person abuses power to obtain sexual benefit or advantage where sex rather than money is used as the currency of the bribe. Then you have public commissions and reports. Public commission reports generated at public expense must be made public or for public to read. But non-release of such reports by politicians cannot be interpreted as for any public good. This is another corruption format, and public can use for here for personal benefit. Here are our university students often get involved with various protest campaigns. And this time around, they're talking about Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis. University project. What they don't know is that they have contributed to our downfall for years and years and years. Say Saitam, several years ago, said not for us. Then didn't go for education for about a year. Then allied health education. Protests went on against your own students for years and years and years, and with so much damage to education. Then there was request for more money, and that went on for another month without going for education. Then again, similar things, protests were taking up in Jaffna as well. So what they do not know is that they have contributed to it over many years, wasting public money and preventing education because they are on free education tickets, driven by same politicos opposing the same. So you can see how political corruption seeps into universities as well. So the rogue aids, rogue loans, rogue projects are a real problem for us in Sri Lanka. We are full of these. How do we at least recognize these? Political corruption is the illegitimate use of public power to benefit a private interest. I use the term political looting for this event, and it's rampant, we believe, and it's more subtle and covert. The recent share market scandal is one, and the methods are evolving as well. Exposing corruption and holding the corrupt to account can only happen if we understand the way corruption works and the systems that enables it. That's what we are trying to do here. Learn how it happens. In the meantime, we refer our attention to this letter from Finland down to Sri Lanka. This was written by S.H. Maulana and published last week. He says, the Finland is the world's happiest country, including its neighbors, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Why is it happy? Because it's healthy life expectancy. There's a good per capita income. There's social support in times of trouble, low corruption, and high social trust. Generosity in a community where people look after each other, freedom to make key life decisions. Now, these are the things that we need to promote as well if we want to become a happy nation. So he also writes, Sri Lanka is amongst the unhappiest people in the world. Of the 149 countries surveyed, we are at 129th over the last 3 years period. Afghanistan, we all know, is placed last, occupying 149th position. Why? Because there's dirty politics, stinking corruption, and violence. If you take the corruption perception index, look at the blue countries, and they have best corruption indices. Although they have differences, they still have some degree of corruption, but not as bad as the other countries. Look at our color, somewhere here, and the other countries having corruption. Now, Sri Lanka is changing relationship to Chinese loans. Both the share and the type of loans from China are changing as Sri Lanka wrestles with persistent balance of payment issues. Here's what has changed. A unique feature of a syndicated loan or foreign currency term financing facility, term FTFF, as it is also known, is that the loan is not attached to a project, Thus, the Sri Lankan government has the liberty to use the loan money at their will. This is contrary to project loans, in which loan money should be strictly used only for project purposes. So in this type of loan as well, it's us, the working class, who has to pay and not the politicians. See the corruption perception index that we talked about. New Zealand, Singapore, Denmark, Finland, they all are at high level. Australia, Canada, UK, high level. So it is good to match our popular destinations as individuals versus popular destinations for government deals. So these are popular destinations for us who are planning to emigrate. But for our government, these are popular countries they deal with. China, India, Ethiopia, Sierra Leone, Pakistan, Russia, Iran. And if you see the corruption indices, they are very close to ours, 42, 40, 38, 33, Russia here 29, Iran is 25. And this situation where we are corrupt, they are corrupt, and perfect solution for double deals. Both sides will benefit, but ultimately we have to pay. So it's perfect for double deals as they are just as corrupt as we are. Now, International Monetary Fund has come into light these days because there was government resistance to go to International Monetary Fund. When a country borrows from the IMF, its government agrees to adjust its economic policies to overcome the problems that led it to seek financial aid. These policy adjustments are conditions for IMF loans and serve to ensure that the country will be able to repay the IMF. This system of conditionality is designed to promote national ownership for strong and effective policies. But our stand has been, don't go there. Why? Because of these conditions. If you look at the Monetary Fund reports, every year there's a report in relation to us, Sri Lanka as well. Their loans, interest rate is just over 1% and transparent, as opposed to the more than 4%, some quote 8% or so, we are paying for some local friendly loans from China. So, but Sri Lanka is keeping an open mind on an IMF bailout. So this is kind of the last resort that's now coming into light. So look at this cartoon. It's self-explanatory why people were not trying to go to IMF. You see the English translation. Why are you all so afraid of going to IMF? Yes, a local man is asking from a politician. And he replies, think of it, man. When we take a loan from IMF, we have to show exactly how we spent it to the last cent. On the other hand, look at the Chinese loans. They do not want to know whether we ate it or put it in our own private bank accounts. So this is not the first time that we have gone to IMF. We've gone into IMF many times before, including N.M. Pereira in 1971. So, but when we want to go to IMF, Lanka to obtain services of international law firm to handle dealings with IMF. So we want international law firm to handle this request. Why? Are we Sri Lanka's dumb and stupid? Or is this an attempt to keep us citizens in the dark? Now, this is the 17th time Sri Lanka is negotiating a global financial package from the IMF. The reason? The legal expertise from a foreign company is sought for debt restructuring. That is a reason given. But then why are we not seeking the same expertise when we are entering into a foreign debt? That is not done. So this is at a time when foreign exchange for payment to foreign consultancy is scarce. And who pays for this? Us, the taxpayer. So let's look at our past. Some of our previous finance ministry consultancies. In 2014, consultancy was made to Imad Zubari, who is an ex-CIA agent, and his company was paid US dollars 6.5 million. This man was later sentenced to 12 years imprisonment under US law for financial violation. See our consultancies. Then again, this one. This Bell Pottinger to raise Sri Lanka's image abroad. This is not a tender procedure, but agreed to pay US dollars 4.7 million a year for this UK consultancy. But what was Sri Lanka High Commission doing in relation to this? Nothing. So the problem is the appointment of big ranking officials and secretaries to the Treasury is not based on skill or competence, but faithful status. This is our weakness that has led to all this. So effects of corruption. It erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, further exacerbate inequality, poverty, social division, and the environment crisis. So corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. So what are the types of corruption we have? We have petty corruption that happens at a smaller scale, occurs at a smaller scale at the implementation end of public services, when public officials meet the public. For example, registration offices, police stations, state licensing boards, etc. We know that. Then there's grand corruption. This occurs at the highest levels of government in a way that requires significant subversion of the political, legal, and economic systems. Such corruption is commonly found in countries with authoritarian or dictatorial governments, but also in those without adequate policing of corruption. The government system in many countries is divided into legislative, executive, and judicial branches in an attempt to provide independent services that are less subject to grand corruption due to their independence from one another. Now we have both these situations. We'll talk about it later. Then there's systemic corruption. Corruption that is so prevalent that it is part of the everyday structure of society, including corruption as one of the symptoms of organized crime. Systemic corruption or endemic corruption is corruption which is primarily due to the weaknesses of an organization or process. It can be contrasted with individual officials or agents who act corruptly within the system, which is also something common to us. So what factors promote systemic corruption? Conflicting incentives, discretionary powers, monopolistic powers, lack of transparency, low pay, culture of impunity. Now that shows what needs to be addressed if you want to improve the status of corruption from what it is. Corruption has been or is our nation's killer. It remains a major problem in Sri Lanka. Weak whistleblower protection have negative impacts on citizens' willingness to stand up against corruption. That's one of our problems. Why? Weak whistleblower protections, even at the highest court. Whistleblowers can become a victim. Even the police is fully aware of it. They are afraid of transfer victimization, etc. And we know even a minister at some point for whistleblowing had to go into prison recently. This has negative impacts on citizens' willingness to stand up against corruption. Further, irresponsibility of the intellectuals also contribute to corruption. They either keep quiet when they see corruption, or when it's corruption, they talk in the opposite direction, say it's a good idea. So this is kind of mainly done by the politicized intellectuals. See where the projection is. In 2020, Sri Lanka's GDP was, the government debt as a percentage was about 90%. That's where we were. And the projection was that we'd probably remain the same in 2025 as well. But now in 2022, we are here. And we are going to be really bad again in 2025. That's the projection. But why is it all happen? If you look at 1948, we are here. We didn't have a debt. And how come we've reached from this end to that end, like Zambia and Angola? Why is corruption bad for us? Corruption erodes the trust we have on the public sector and services. It also wastes our taxes or rates that have been earmarked for important community projects. This means that we have to put up with poor quality services or infrastructure or no service altogether. This affects both on the economy and the society at large. What predisposes us to corruption? Morals are our understanding of good and bad. A morally corrupt person may think that it is okay to steal from the poor or take sweets from children, speed up your car when you see an old person crossing the road. A corrupt person is a criminal, a crook, or a crooky thief who brings society down with immoral and dishonest behavior. Many factors attribute to corruption. These include greed of money, desires for higher levels of market and political monopolization, low levels of democracy, weak civil participation, and low political transparency. That is why we must only vote honest politicians into office. This can only be done by helping people understand and recognize honest politicians and state officials. So what tools do we need to curb corruption to the minimum? We need to expose potential corruption events and investigate this to confirm its existence. In order to the public should have a say, confidential method to complain to the independent organization that can publicize suspected corruption events and confirmed or rejected events for public benefits. In other words, the person who is whistleblowing need to be protected from reprisals. The confirmed event should be escalated for legal prosecution. There is a need to stabilize such corrupt activities, however small it may be, to generate anti-corruption behaviors in our nation. We must establish and publicly fund independent corruption watchdog to protect public money and assets. We have a commission to investigate allegations of bribery and corruption, been there for years, but unfortunately, it is like this. It is not designed to catch small. It's designed to catch small fish, but not the sharks. A good governance and a true democracy is a dream for us. But let's see what it can be. The government is a true representation of people. That's number one. Then they will only serve a term of 4 years. The reason is, this is because the voter base changes by approximately 10% during that time. And the government shall be accountable to what they do, will be transparent on the factual basis on their decision making, protect the nation and not punish them, maintain democracy within the parliament throughout the term, honor professionalism and do not interfere with the judiciary, do not interfere with civil governance that is based on country's laws. Focus on policy change with adequate open debate on issues. Here is another example what politicians do to support themselves. Gamampila to move 2020 a new constitution amendment again against the dual citizens holding the office. The reason, because he was sacked from his ministerial post recently. He thinks few dual citizens in government have been corrupt. That's what he says. Then the personal antagonisms, at least against one because of this sacking. So corruption, using public office for personal gain, And he does not talk about what about corrupt Sri Lankan citizens in power. So he wants to get rid of dual citizens because one or two of them have been corrupt in the parliament. What we really need is zero tolerance for corruption in our constitution. If that happens, most things will come right. Our democratic socialism Sri Lanka was designed to have 3 independent institutions. Now, this is a good model. The president, that's the executive branch, the judiciary, that's the legislative branch, and the parliament, that's the judicial branch. But unfortunately, they are not independent. This is our problem. The president has become more autocratic. The judiciary is the independence of the judiciary is threatened, and the parliament is dysfunctional. Take our parliament, for example. You have 196 elected MPs, 29 national MPs, and these national MPs have become basically the backdoor entrance for the lost. But they contribute to the so-called two-third democracy. So take this example, for example. In 2019, the ruling party leader lost the election, lost the seat, but in parliament today and remains the leader, completely undemocratic. So in Sri Lanka, corruption remains a major problem. Let's explore some that has happened in the recent past. Central Bank of Sri Lanka bond scandal, we heard about this. A financial laundering scam happened on 27 February 2015. Public loss estimated US dollars 11 million. Then Sri Lanka had just billions lost in corruption at national carrier. That's Sri Lankan. One example, Sri Lankan Airlines in 2013 ordered 10 aircraft, price USD 2.3 billion. Then there was abuse of office and bribery allegations in relation to this. Therefore, the purchase of the planes were cancelled, and the public cost was USD 115 million. This is because when you cancel an agreement, you will have to pay a punishment fee. Take this example. We've seen these slides already, and see what we have cancelled recently. Malabay to Fort Light Railway Project. Estimated cost of this project was US dollar 1.85 billion. Then Kalani Valley project, estimated cost US dollars 662 million. Then AFD funded urban improvement project, US dollars 300 million. Improvement of 25 secondary townships, US dollar 250 million. So all these projects, there are several other projects as well, were cancelled after reaching agreements. And all these would have required punishment payments back to the people who we agreed with. So that's costing dollars and dollars and dollars of taxpayers' money for nothing, and nothing we have gained. Other scams, sugar scam, cost Sri Lanka rupees 15.9 billion in tax revenue. Then garlic scam. This is 2 container loads of garlic from Satasa sold to a private trader at 135 rupees a kilo. The market price for kilo at that time was rupees 445. And this was bought without submitting any invoices, basically stolen from the government. So then these crooks are more or less the same. One group responsible for sugar and coconut oil scams. Manusha, one of the MPs, say. So who pays for these losses? We pay, the working class has to pay. Then the oil hedging deal, which happened many years ago, into $1 billion scam. Sri Lanka had to ultimately pay for this because through a legal proceeding. So we bought oil at a hedged higher price when the world fossil fuels price have died down to like half of what it was. So we were paying basically double the price because of this hedged higher price. And this was not required at all. So the loss is huge. So the court decided that Sri Lanka suffered rupees 10.2 billion due to the hedging deal. A reason one again. Sri Lanka settled 6.9 million fertilizer bill with Chinese supplier. We imported some organic fertilizer and this was rejected. And then you had to pay for it. This is because we have no quality assurance and so on when we involve public money in a project. Then there are other costly things, small scale petty corruption that's happening at the local level, also affecting us. If you look at, say, if you're a foreigner, you want to go to Sri Lanka, you look at information and you say Sri Lanka holiday guru. Then the first page, it says 9 costly scams to avoid when you travel in Sri Lanka. So genuine people don't want to come. So our cost is reputation. So we have just less genuine tourists. And how can we afford all this? And we say we want tourism to survive. We can't. This is something that happened in Tangol long time ago when the British national was killed and the Russian partner undergo surgery because there was sexual assault. What happens? What's the public cost? Underestimated. It's a huge problem. So it affects our reputation. So if you look at the constitution of the Democratic Republic of Sri Lanka, which is now under revised 21 times. If you look at it, I searched for the word corruption in 230 pages, not found. So what we really need is an essential inclusion for this is just 3 words, zero tolerance for corruption in our constitution, so that the corruption will receive the correct attention we need. This is our Sri Lankan 2 young children holding placards just a few days ago. We need responsible leadership. She says, Nangi can't sleep without current. So showing their problems. But what is important to know is that they are our children in Sri Lanka. They need collective leadership. There are no individuals who can do it, not individual. You all can contribute to this as leaders, however small it could be, in the areas of your expertise. An elected politician in our country should be another public service job and should be subject to all public service regulations. There are other areas that needs attention in relation to the constitution and in relation to governance, which we can discuss as we go along. And thank you for listening. And the talk is now open for discussion. Thank you very much. Kirti, you are there. You can talk, Kirti? Kirti, can you hear me?
Yes, of course. Right. Okay. I guess you can hear me now.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much indeed for bringing this subject up and also giving an excellent summary. I think you have covered a very large area. It's a very complex subject. So I don't think we can complete a discussion in one day. It might take 5 days.
I agree.
However, there is something I felt I must highlight.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. You used the word violence several times.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
By the way, I don't know to disclose my age, but I can talk about certain things with confidence with my experience.
Yeah.
So now let me give an example. In the last few days, certain TV channels tried to say that there was violence in protesting. But the reality is that violence was not created by the protesters, but it was created by somebody setting fire to the bus deliberately. And the police didn't catch him. There is evidence. In fact, a lawyer in the court declared that it was done by the government. So this is a very recent example. If I go back, in many situations, the violence was not created by the civilians. It was created by the governments so that they can benefit to control it. So Okay, that's only a minor factor. It doesn't take away any of the things you mentioned.
That is corruption as well.
That is absolute corruption. And that's the absolute top of the corruption league.
Exactly. So that's using public power for private benefit.
Yes, right. Now, the next thing I would like to highlight is you gave various examples of money lost, right? The now you also highlighted borrowing money. Again, I have very reliable information on some of these things. Of course, I can't disclose any of them for legal reasons. Um,
Yeah, I think the issue is that I have brought up what is their public knowledge to highlight certain things. But I mean, we are not in a blame culture and we are not a legal institution. So we don't want to go into any details. We have to learn from what has happened and then try to go forward. That's what I'm trying to do rather than to try and who is at fault or whatever.
Absolutely. That's the correct philosophy, but I'll come to that in a minute. Now, in the last 20 years or so, according to Mr. Vijay, is it Gamini Vijay Singh? We have borrowed 13 trillion rupees, but there are only development projects worth about 3 trillion. That means 10 trillion has disappeared somewhere. That's about $40 billion. If we had that $40 billion, I don't think we have a problem today.
Well, I mean, there are issues like that. So what we want to see is how to put it a correction to this. So we have to look at the future. It's not going to be easy to correct it over a day or two. It's going to take years to get it in there. So we're trying to educate the public and say, yes, we need to sort this problem out. That's what we're trying to say.
Now, again, so again, I have noticed, I agree with you. This is not an easy thing to solve. Now, I believe, this is my belief now, right? It's a cultural problem. We have a culture, we have where we accept corruption as part of the culture. That
Absolutely
didn't
right.
happen, that didn't happen in a day. If you go back 70 years, it was there a little bit, tiny little bit, maybe 0.1%. If you go back 60 years, it was about 0.3%. If you go back 50 years, it was about 1%. Then it was increasing exponentially. So because it is ingrained in the culture, we have to do something to change the culture. It takes time, it takes effort. Now, I will give an example. This is a real example which happened to me within the last 10 days. I belong to several groups, in WhatsApp groups. I shared some information relating to corruption and bribery in a very positive way. One person who is extremely experienced, a lot of experience, very senior person who used to work in Sri Lanka, he came back and said, what is bribery? It's only a service charge. Now, his view was that it's like if you go to a restaurant and pay service charge 10%. I had the same discussion with a very senior teacher in Sri Lanka about 3 years ago. They assume, oh, it's only a service charge, 10% commission, so what's wrong with it? Now, what they don't remember is that when they talk about 10%, they may be talking about 100 rupees or 1,000 rupees. But if we take the same scale at the top, they are talking about $10 million, 10%. Now, that's the difference.
That is very true. I mean, the commissions, I mean, happen, but if it's all declared and transparent before anything was done, then that is fine as a part of the project. But what's happened is it's all hidden, as you say, and then it's not no longer a legitimate commission, if I may say. Yeah. So I mean, that's the situation. So, say if you say Sri Lanka, you ask, say for example, take example, you ask your labor to get some bread for you from the market or something, and the little child or somebody will go and get it, and you might give few rupees or something in return. So that's not really a bribery; it was a service charge. But this is probably what your friend is trying to explain, and then why I can say that what has happened to our people is that some of the professionals have become politicized. So they try to downgrade certain things or even hide it because they are politicized. That's the reason.
So again, remaining on that kind of commission culture, although you say that commission, if it is declared, it is okay. Personally, I don't think it is necessary at all, because now, of course, now in this case, I have to wear my not Sri Lankan hat, I have to wear a UK hat because I'm in the UK. I have been through training courses because I held several positions in the UK. When I joined a certain organization, the first thing I had to go was on a training course about the corruption and conflict of interest. We were told in no uncertain terms, if there is a conflict of interest, if your family, your friend, or your son, or somebody is involved in this business, you should not be there to make the decisions. You must declare it and go out. In fact, I have various examples of that. I can give real examples. So that is the culture we need. We should make sure that people do not take part in decision making when they are involved on the other side. In Sri Lanka, I know that for a fact. Of course, they themselves are not involved, but their brother or the son or wife's sister, son or what, somehow is doing the business with the government, and they are making the decision. So commission should be, in my personal view, commission should be ruled out. But in order to remove the discrepancies in salaries, we should have a fair strategy for creating a reasonable income for living, maintaining the living standards for the person. That's my personal view.
No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, this is something that you all can discuss at the huge point about how to get better income for people. And it's partly because of corruption that you not get anything down the track to the grassroots level, because it's all corrupt before you get any money down to the grassroots level. I mean, say, for example, I mean, recently, for whatever the reason, that the government printed, I think, more than 1/3 of the stock of currency just printed. So basically, if you take it, I mean, like a layman like me, then I see that your salary, if it was 3,000, the value of that becomes immediately 2,000. So you just can't survive. Although by numbers, you're getting the same salary. So a government should take into account like inflation or whatever, and then increase the salary like in developed countries, so that at least you maintain the status quo of that standard of living for people who are working for the government. So it's not happening at all. We don't have an inflation index or anything linked to the government servant salaries.
Yes. So I'll make another one point and then sort of let somebody else speak, because I can see some other hands are going up.
Yeah.
So the other thing is with regards to agriculture. I mean, I'm not the only person making this noise. Obviously, there's a lot of corruption in that area. Farmers are not getting the benefit. So we must have an agricultural policy where we protect the farmers, protect the people working in those industries by giving a fixed price. And not only that, the policy should be to prevent anybody importing any products which are competing with the local products at an unfair price. That must be a policy.
Yeah, it's all good suggestions. Yes. So thank you very much, Kirti, for all that. I think 2 hands are raised by Professor Dharmadas and Udita. I don't know who went up first because I was not watching.
I think Dharma went first, I think.
Okay, Professor Dharma, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to say something from our own area. Professor Lakshman Disanayake is in the audience. We as a consortium have been promoting renewable energy sources in the country, showing the problems with the fossil fuel, but CB ignored it. They were getting their benefits. Obviously, they couldn't do it alone. They have done it with the support from ministries. Obviously, according to your clarification, it is grand corruption. That is why people are in the dark today. In the future, it will be even harder if people try to depend on fossil fuel. I just want to say something. I picked up your CP index of Maldives Islands and Sri Lanka. Maldives Islands is 43 and Sri Lanka is 38. I was traveling in Maldives Islands. Everywhere I saw very large boards displaying corruption spreads like virus unless you stop it. Everybody has the responsibility to stop it. The main problem is most of the educated people don't talk about it. That is the danger. We have to talk about it openly, and then only through education we can stop corruption. Silence means you accept it.
Absolutely
And-
correct. Yeah. Absolutely
And
correct.
also some years ago, my colleague Mervyn Silva is here. Two of us took the lead to write articles on through the professional I series. One article was article on corruption. I think this kind of things, perhaps through this consortium, we should put it to people so that people learn, people reject it completely. I like your bucket with holes. With holes, we can't develop the country.
No, you
We
can't.
have to completely, at least, I don't know whether we can do it 100%. We have to remove those holes if we want to economically develop this country. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it's absolutely correct. We need to do what we can do, and that is what we are trying to do. So if many people can join, do whatever small thing they can do, we can go forward. Thank you. And I think next is Uditha. Yeah. I can't hear you, Uditha. I think
You're
you
on
have to
mute,
unmute.
right? Okay.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I think Prof. Dharme sort of touched on it. I think when it comes to corruption, before pointing the finger at all the other people, you need to, each of us have got a responsibility of not to be corrupt, in the sense to contribute to a system. If you contribute to a system saying that, oh, the system is corrupt, therefore there's no option, I think you can't then point to the system, point to the politicians or various other people. Because if you give a bribe to a policeman because you're speeding, if you bypass the process, right, you are contributing to the system. And so it's the responsibility of all citizens to do their part to prevent corruption. So if you give a bribe to a government official, then you are contributing to a system. But if you take a stand against that, that's the way to do it. So I think it is the responsibility of all to prevent corruption. When I look at things, why? I mean, as you say, there are many facets of corruption, but about 10 or 15 years ago, I participated in a APSL meeting and we discussed the same thing. And I said, why don't the APSL look at the 10 or 20 most corrupt systems or corrupt situations and educate the public? So these will be something like when you're stopped for speeding, what do you do? What are your rights and what is the proper way that the official, in that case the police, should handle the situation? The problem is why corruption happens is people don't know what exactly should happen. So therefore, they get away by giving a bribe. So if you take the most common situations where corruption happens, and if you educate the public, right, that itself can reduce the corruption. And similarly, if you go to a government department or uh, council to get a property work or something done, if you know the standards, if the standards are clearly displayed, that could reduce the corruption. So if you say that if you give a application for land matter, and if it says that normally it takes a month for you to get the decision, if it's clearly displayed, right, then people will wait for that month before doing anything. Now what happens is you don't know how long it's going to take. And after a week, they think that, oh, nothing is happening. I need to give something to someone to get it done. So, so setting standards across the governments in common situations will help, so that you know that you know that you had to wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks to get a decision. And before that, you don't need to pay anyone or try to bribe anyone to get things done. And across UK, if you look at why the corruption is less, is there is a open complaint system, and anybody can complain, and it's up to the institution to act on those complaints. And in many instances, you need to reply to the complainant the outcome of that, right? And that is one of the ways. And I don't think that sort of system is 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 there in Sri Lanka. So if you have a system, if you have got system to complain, then because if within an office or within within a sort of system, if there are one or two corrupt officials who is always asking for bribes and things like that to to get anything done, and if there's a complaint system that would highlight those people, and they have to do something about it. And on a larger scale, on a political scale, I think we always link politicians to corruption. I don't know what is the exact situation in UK, but I don't think that sort of corruption happens. Why is that? Is that politicians are there only to take um, policy decisions. They don't get involved in awarding contracts. So politicians are there only for uh, policy decisions, and the awarding contracts is up to the ministries or the officials. So therefore, that link is broken. Whereas in Sri Lanka, it's the politicians who take the policy decisions, and they are the people who get involved in awarding the contracts, and that sort of thing is automatically recipe for 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 corruption. And also, there should be established standards for all awarding of all contracts, and there should be another independent body to look at all these mega projects to see whether the processes have been followed. And so these are some of my thoughts on this matter. But I think what I suggested to APSL many years ago was that to have a public education system on uh, common instances, and either publicize to uh, how people should act through TV clips or newspaper articles, and that's educating the public on common things is one way of reducing that. And from a children point of view, I think corruption issues should be taught in schools right from the start, so that people that they will know uh, that corruption is bad for themselves as well as the society. Thanks,
Yeah, I
Chula.
think thank you, Dita. I think you wrote up a lot of points. It looks like that we might have to another one or two discussions in the future on these areas, how to tackle corruption. I mean, education is true, rule is true, and then and the civil administration. So what has happened in Sri Lanka is slowly over the years, the civil administration got politicized. So the head of the civil administration departments became the political appointee, and the secretaries who represented various departments came from elsewhere. They were not the experts who went through the seniority in their department itself. So there are lots of issues that we can talk about. I think I'll organize another talk about this at some point. Yeah. Next is Mervyn, please.
Right, thanks, Chula. I think I'm going to, if it is okay, turn the video off. Otherwise, my battery will run out and might get cut.
Okay.
So, first of all, thank you very much. It was an excellent presentation, and you opened up some very, it was a wonderful analysis of the bigger picture. And unfortunately, I came in about a third of the way, so I missed part of it. If there's a recording, I'd love to see that if you could make it available. A couple of comments I want to make. One, picking up on what Udita just said and relating back to your presentation, Chula, was corruption exists in three levels, you said. The macro level, the individual level, then the government, the micro, macro, and then the systemic level. So as Udita said, if APSL, we were to educate, inform the general public about their rights and how to assert themselves, that's part of it. But if there's the unwillingness at the high level, and if they are what so-called queering the pitch, corrupting the systems, and the individuals can only go so far. Like if you want to get something done from a government office, you know your rights and say you're refusing to pay. But if nothing is going to happen, I mean, people like you and me, better informed, more assertive, can take it. But some helpless people, they can't wait any longer. They see everybody has to bribe somebody to get some benefit. They have no choice but to do that. So whether you like it or not, people are pressured into supporting the corrupt systems. And anyway, that wasn't what I was going to say. My main point I want to raise was Sri Lanka as a nation, with a lot of hope, voted in Yahapalne government back in 2015, thinking that we are going to turn a new chapter and start put a lot of these things behind. Unfortunately, we got let down in a big way, hence the changes in 2019. Now, yet again, the country is at crossroads in a lot more harsh way, more violent way, potentially violent way. My main question is, how can we, what can we do in a practical way to avoid the same mistakes? Because every party is leading, all the political leaders out there to say, bring us to voters to power, we will sort it. But people desperate, wanting a solution, will vote one party or the other to power, and to learn the lesson in 2 or 3 years' time, to say they are no better than anybody else. What lessons can be learned? How can we do it right this time, so that we can break this once and for all, and people don't have to go through this again and again and again? What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very complex area. I mean, as you say, I mean, the education is a priority for people to learn. But when I mean, even in things like, when I was involved in trying to implement various road traffic accident rules and so on. So in that kind of situation, you want to implement and educate at the same time. So you do a
Yeah.
rule for implementation and then educate the public at the same time. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Say even in the UK, for example, I mean, I got caught 3 times by police for driving faster, but never publicly given a punishment, saying they always help, saying that I was doing a mistake for some reason.
Yeah.
So that kind of exception to the rule is always there. Flexibility is always there. But the mindset of the people who are implementing rule has that. So unfortunately, what has happened in Sri Lanka is it's actually changed over the years again and again. As you say, people are pressurized to commit to get something done. And this has to come off slowly, and we have to educate people. That's why I'm trying to seek as much support, ideas as much as possible, because I'm not an expert on the subject. It's not a subject for me. I've just collected my lifetime experience to put something together so people can start thinking about it. So as Professor Dharma said, I mean, doing leaflets, talking to them and so on is important. But people, if we go to violence, we are going to stay in a worse situation in the future, and the recovery is going to be even less, successful. So this is why I was trying to say, shall we take some effort, try to educate the public?
Can I make one more comment then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the difficulty with Sri Lanka is that we select somebody, they are thinking, for example, the 2019 elections. He's not a politician, he's a good administrator. He will, change, put all this behind, and hopefully he will do it right. But it hasn't been. And what we do in countries like Singapore, for example, the leader was not corrupt for a start and leading by example, and he would not tolerate corruption and quite strict about it. So that way, the systems can be corrected, and people, even corrupt people, think twice because the punishments are harsh and consistent. Now, however good systems there are, one corrupt leader up there on the top, as long as that is there, as they say, the fish rots from the head down. So Sri Lanka cannot change until we can find a leader who is not corrupt. I don't know, looking around, whether you can think of anybody who fits into that mold, that can give that moral leadership the country needs. That's one point. The second one is, without forgetting, Asian cultures, Sri Lanka in particular, are very sort of religious people. We depend very much on the moral leadership of the clergy. Now, I'm just looking for any linkage between the religious leaders. What sort of example do they set about? What messages do they convey? What examples do they give to their followers about is corruption acceptable? Or, I mean, perhaps we sort of detach that in looking at Sri Lanka and say, well, wherever you turn, there are statues, temples, churches, day and night. But when it comes to this, Sri Lanka is one of the most corrupt countries.
Yeah, sadly, we have become a very corrupt country. And as Udita said, point your finger at yourself and see how you are behaving. And if you can get others to do that as well, you'd probably be able to get somewhere. But I tend not to give up, because I think the leadership in this case has to be not an individual, but it has to be a group of people, as many as possible, saying the same message to get it to happen. And it will happen, because we can see other countries, for example, I mean, say Germany and Japan were rock bottom at the end of the Second World War, but they have developed because they put some policies and got together and people went forward. So similarly, I think this is another opportunity where we can start developing from the rock bottom. So I think we should be able to do that. But I think we have to share all our views like we have done today. Maybe we should do it in the future as well. So I'll try to organize more this kind of discussions rather than presentations. So we can ask people to show their views as to how to prevent it, what tools we need it, and so on, so we can develop some consensus. So thank you there. I think Keith also raised the hand, please.
Yes, now I wanted to come back and clarify a couple of things. I think in generally a lot of the views expressed during the last half an hour, I agree with them. We have to educate the people, and also what we have to remember is that, as I said before, it's a cultural issue. To change a culture takes a lot of time and effort. So we cannot expect big results in a short period. It might take 10 years, 15 years to change the culture. But that doesn't mean that we should not start. We should start now, but keep moving forward, but not necessarily expecting wonderful results in a short period. In Sri Lanka, some of the biggest problems are not because of the corruption at the lower level, but corruption at the higher level. So the sooner we can remove the corruption from the top levels, we can make a significant change. But again, those people at the top have a lot of power and influence, so they would not easily let other people change them. So now I want to give a couple of examples as to what happened in the UK, because somebody mentioned UK. In the UK, there are checks and balances. So even if people move in the corrupt direction, because human beings are human beings, few of them will always try to break the rules. But in the UK, there are checks and balances. They get caught up very quickly. I'll give one example. There was an MP in the Northern Ireland Parliament. He was in the British Parliament. They are expected to declare every year any gifts they receive from anybody. But this particular MP did not declare a gift he got. Guess where he got the gift from? He got a gift from the Sri Lankan government. At the time, the President Rajapaksa, not this one, Mahinda Rajapaksa, gave him a free visit to Sri Lanka, which cost £50,000. Now, he didn't declare that, but a year later, audit department caught it, and he had to resign. That MP had to resign. Let me give the second example. In the last couple of years, there was an MP in London. He got caught for speeding, but what she did was, she got her husband to admit the speeding thing, which was even a criminal offense, and it got caught. But when they got caught, she was sent to prison for 3 months. By law, if the prison sentence is less than 3 months, she could remain as an MP. So she didn't want to resign. But there's a second clause saying that if the voters in that district sign a petition, if more than 10,000 sign, she must resign. So 10,000 people signed and said, look, you must leave. So she had to resign. Let me give the next example. This is a big one. I'm very familiar with this one. In fact, I'll tell the government, certain government minister in Indonesia asked for a big bribe, 25 million. And a certain big company paid that bribe. But within a month, it came to light to the chairman of the company. So chairman informed the bribery commission. And that to face save, before it went to the bribery commission, that official resigned from the company. Because he didn't use any money. He simply gave the money to the politician in Indonesia. But guess how much was fined by the bribery commission in the UK and in USA? Ask me what the penalty was for giving a 25 million bribe. They were sorry, $25 million bribe. The punishment was they had to pay $196 million as punishment. So that is how things are controlled. Human beings are human beings. They do make mistakes. So you must have the checks and balances to catch them. We should not simply depend that everything will be perfect. But at the same time, those systems work in the UK because most people are brought up to believe in justice, brought up to follow rules. It's the same in Japan and Germany. I lived in Germany. So in Germany, the reason why they recovered was because they have a culture of respecting law and order. That's how they do. So I think, as you said, there's a lot of subjects here, a lot of complex issues. I don't think we can solve it in one day, but we should start the journey from where we are. And hopefully in 10, 15 years time, we have a much better Sri Lanka. I hope so.
Yeah, thank you, Kirti, for that. And I've just received a message from Professor Lakshman Disana. He's raised the hand as well, saying that we should continue on this subject in the future, which I agree very much. We can organize it for next Sunday and postpone the next Sunday's meeting. That was
Thank you,
scheduled for a different time.
Chula. It's quite interesting, and thank you very much for making the preparations and doing a very excellent presentation, setting up the background for this very important discussion. And I think we cannot finish this in 1 hour. We have identified the problem. Now it is up to us to make suggestions how to come out of this economic and political crisis in Sri Lanka. It's not easy. It'll be a very complex journey. So shall we focus next Sunday also on the similar topic?
Yeah, I'm fully with you. And then I'll try to organize the next meeting. And if people want to do short presentations, they are welcome. And also the most important thing is that we are trying to go in a kind of a middle path where no kind of having a no blame culture. What we want to do is to get the future correct for us.
Yes.
I mean, something bad may have happened in the past, whatever. So I try to avoid putting names and everything, kind of blaming people, because that will offset what we are trying to do. So we are trying to do is something for the future, for our children. I mean, you saw the last picture I showed. That's exactly what we are trying to do. So we will organize again, and we'll meet next Sunday again to discuss the same thing. And I will maybe put a small outline at the beginning so we can talk about it. But I'll invite
for 1 second.
suggestions
Chula,
from you
can
all.
you excuse me, Chula? Can I give me 1 second?
Yeah.
I just noticed that Mr. Abesing has joined because I invited him. Now he had a power cut in Sri Lanka. He lives in Sri Lanka. He had a power cut. He has just joined. So perhaps if you can share the today's discussion for him as well, he can perhaps catch up.
I will send a discussion tonight at some point to everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, welcome.
Just we got the power back, right?
Yeah. We had a very good discussion. We taped the recording. So I will post it tonight, so you'll be able to have a look at some point. But we are going to continue on the same subject next Sunday because Professor Lakshman Disana suggested that. So if there are other people who can join, they're welcome to join. So I'll send the link over.
Thank you.
Anything you have to say?
Okay, thank you very much. Right.
Okay, so we'll end there then today, and we'll meet again next Sunday, and I will send you a link. Great. Thank you so much. It was fantastic discussion, and thank you for all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chula. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye, Kirti.
Okay, cheers then. Bye.
Goodbye, Prof. Lakshman.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.